Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Hope everyone has managed to hang on as we've navigated through the first couple of weeks of term and the start of lockdown part 3. My name is Dilpreet Bagrath and I'm Head of Customer Experience at MyTutor. So the reason we are putting on this webinar today is in light of the national lockdown to talk about how to successfully run your MyTutor online tuition program from home. So this is a scenario we faced last year in March when many of our schools had to switch over to pupils having lessons at home. So what we're here to do today is walk you through the process and share tips to make the transition as smooth as possible. We're also going to be hearing from a fantastic guest speaker, Will Doyle, who is Vice Principal at Ryde Academy, on how they adapted under the last national lockdown to move their programme over to at-home learning. Our hope is that you can take away some concrete insights and ideas to support you through this challenge. During the webinar, if you'd like to submit a question to one of the speakers, please type the question into the Q&A box at the bottom of the webinar, and we'll tackle those questions at the end. You can also upvote other people's questions if you're interested to hear the answer to them. So I'm going to kick things off with an overview of how to run your program from home. Step 1 is to secure the right buy-in. So it's really important that this isn't something you tackle yourself. Our partners usually create a MyTutor team. This can consist of an SLT lead, program leads, which can be heads of departments or teachers in your chosen MyTutor subjects, pupil premium leads, and creating this team really allows you to divide and conquer. So really, really important. If you don't have a MyTutor team already, please have a think about creating one so you don't feel the burden of having to shoulder this alone. Once you have a strong team, it's essential that you secure pupil and parent buy-in. What we've done is we put together our top 3 tips focusing on what our partners have said have worked the best with securing that parent and pupil buy-in. So the first one is a virtual assembly with parents and pupils to explain MyTutor, so the opportunity and the impact. MyTutor pupils make 2.5 times the progress of their peers, and it's really important that you go through this with parents and pupils so they understand that this is a huge opportunity and it could genuinely have a huge difference on their pupils' education. The second is to ask other pupils to share their experiences. So this is actually something that has worked really well for many schools, and because it is a different voice, we've seen even the most disengaged pupils give it a shot. So if you have the luxury of having pupils who have gone through the MyTutor program before in other years, please do utilise that. The last one is to share the pupil and parent cheat sheet as well as our at-home learning guides with pupils and parents. The reason we put these resources together is just to make it as easy as possible for you to explain what MyTutor is, explain how the lessons will run. And we took some feedback on board last year from our partners and created an email template, which you all should have, which means that it's really, really simple to send out. If that isn't something you have right now, just email schools@mytutor.co.uk and we can get that across to you. If there is anything, when looking over this content, if there is anything which you think is missing or you need something more bespoke, please do let us know and we'll be happy to help. The second step is setting up pupils for success. So we're confident that if pupils enter that lesson space, our tutors will build a relationship with them. They'll support them in the focus areas that you've identified on the pupil details form, and they'll help build their confidence, especially during this really challenging time. But it's getting the pupils in that lesson space, which is the challenge. So here are the tips, again, which our partner schools have said have helped the most. So the first one is to set expectations about what that first lesson will look like. That takes away the nervousness and any anxiety pupils might have about taking part in MyTutor. So we send across our, as part of that email template, we send across a video of our lesson space, sharing that with pupils, or in that assembly that I mentioned earlier, showing them that video and showing them what MyTutor looks like can really, really help so that they know what to expect when they go into that lesson. The second is to share login details in advance and ask them to do a test run. The test run will be good both for the pupils to see what it's like and make sure they can successfully log in, but also for you, so when the lesson's running, you don't get lots and lots of emails if pupils are struggling with logging in. The third one is to send out reminders via email or text message. A lot of our partner schools have said that where possible, text message is better, and as it tends to engage pupils more, and it just means that they don't forget their lessons. And finally, the last tip is to offer rewards where possible. So the reason this is really, really, this is a really great tip is because often pupils need a little bit of a nudge to take part in these interventions. We're confident that once they're in the lessons, they won't need continuous incentives because they'll see the progress that they can make in the lessons that they're struggling in. But to get you started, we are offering £25 per school if you want to set up a competition or any initiatives. After this webinar, we're going to be sending out an email with a recording of this webinar and our new microsite, which outlines a step-by-step guide about how to run your program. On that microsite, there's a form that you can fill in to get the £25. And finally, the third step is to track progress. This is really, really important to keep pupils accountable, but also identify who might need that extra support. So the first way to do this, I'm hoping that this will make a lot of you really happy because we've had lots of emails about this in the last week. The product team at MyTutor have been working really hard in the first week of term, and we now have new live attendance monitoring on your portal. So what this means is you can see both for one-to-one and group lessons when your pupils are entering that lesson space, because we know you're not in school, you can't see them log in. You can see the little green dot, which will tell you that they're in the lesson space. There'll be a red dot if they haven't attended. And then the clear grey one in the middle is just where you've told us that they can't attend in advance. So if they've got a doctor's appointment or something has come up, so you know not to expect them. The second way you could track progress is tutor notes. So at the end of every lesson, tutors leave notes outlining how the lesson went, what was covered, and if there were any concerns. And it's a really great way to stay in touch with how that learning is going. We know that you have lots and lots on your plate. So in addition to these two, which require more proactive work, what we will be doing to support is every Monday we'll send you a weekly attendance report outlining who has attended lessons, who hasn't attended lessons, and recommendations where you may need to swap pupils where it is a continuous theme and you've tried to get them to attend and it hasn't worked. This is why it's really, really important to have your reserve list ready to go, because I imagine there are so many pupils who could benefit from this opportunity. So please keep an eye out on that weekly attendance report and any recommendations to switch pupils. In addition to this, we send the fortnightly programme reports with top tips. We let you know how you're doing overall in your programme with attendance. We let you know how pupils are rating their tutors, how they're rating tech, but also we let you know how that compares to the MyTutor average. So how are you doing versus the other 800-900 schools that we're working with. If you have any kind of questions, you can always, in addition to this, you can always email or call us. And at the end of every programme report email, there is a link where you can book in a call with us. So we know time is limited right now, so there are 20-minute slots where you can just book in calls and speak about your programme where it'll be useful. So the next part is just a very quick overview about how our partners reacted in 2020 when we went through the first lockdown. So the good news is that the vast majority of programmes did continue their programmes from home, and a lot of them were able to continue with the same cohort where tech wasn't a blocker. But here at MyTutor, we completely understand what you're going through. We completely understand that tech, often with more disadvantaged pupils as well is a huge blocker. So we are going to be really, really flexible with who you can run the program with. Just because you've purchased a year 11 program or year 10 program, that doesn't mean only those pupils can benefit. We're happy to be really, really flexible. So where you do need to, you can switch pupils to new pupils either from the same or different year group, or you can use lessons to support vulnerable or key worker pupils. All you have to do is email schools@mytutor.co.uk, tell us what the blockers are, tell us what you need from us to help you support our pupils, and we'll work together to tailor a solution. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Will Doyle, who's going to talk about his experience of doing this for the second time.
Good afternoon, colleagues. If we could go to the next slide, Dilpreet, that would be great. First thing I'll say is before I go through my little list of top tips, it's not a one size fits all sort of solution. These are just some of the things that we've done at Ryde Academy that have worked for us. After this, if you want to ask any further questions, my email's at the bottom of the slide there. You're more than welcome to email me and I can go into more depth. But Dilpreet's covered a lot of the things that I was going to sort of allude to, but I'll go into a bit more detail. Communication is really, really, really key. Right at the beginning of the program, how you communicate to parents is vital because they are going to be the key to unlocking that engagement at home. We take all the templates provided by MyTutor, and they are really good templates that make sure you access them. We use their guides, but what we do is we personalize them. So for example, we take the video that MyTutor created about this is the lesson space, this is what the lesson space looks like, and we've personalized it with me. And it's me talking in a Google Classroom recording, and we've stitched the two together, and it puts that personal touch to it. And the parents know, they know us more than MyTutor. MyTutor won't mind me saying that. So by putting the personalized touch to your communications has a huge impact on the buy-in for those parents. We create a MyTutor email address that everyone that's involved with MyTutor has access to. So ours is mytutor@rydeacademy.org, and it funnels all concerns, all support needed through the central team. I'll talk about that in a minute. Dilpreet alluded to it. We use text messaging a lot. So all our letters, all our videos go into Google Drives, and we text message links to those letters, to those videos. We found our engagement with parents increased hugely for using the text messages, and they get a text and it says, please click this link to watch this video about this exciting new program that your child's been selected for. And the parents are much happier just to click a simple link on their phone rather than opening an email, reading the emails and things. It just worked for us, so it's worth something exploring. You do need to have like a Google Drive sort of platform where you can generate those links to make that work. We use Google Classroom. We have a classroom set up for our Key Stage 4 MyTutor program, and we're just going through the process of dipping into Key Stage 3 with the National Tutoring Program. So we're setting up a Google Classroom there because this Key Stage 3 program we're going into will be the largest program we've ever run with huge numbers of students. So it's going to need a lot of communication. We're working with teenagers fundamentally, so they need reminding again, and then you remind them again. And it's just a constant, nagging's probably not the right word, but a constant reminding the students and the parents of when the session is and it's coming up. To support that, you do need a dedicated team. And I'm not talking vast numbers of staff. So I'm the SLT link for MyTutor, but under me, I have the pastoral leads for the year groups. So we're running our program in year 11 and year 9, and they front up lots of the communication. I have the head of year 11 outside the pastoral leads, and I have head of maths and head of English on board as well. So we've got lots of people constantly communicating. We do a weekly reminder of when the sessions are coming up. Then the night before, we do a text message and email reminder. And then even the hour before the session's due to start, we do another reminder. It might seem like it's a bit over the top, but it works. The constant drip feed reminding is vital to the success of the program. Next, MyTutor doesn't work for every student. Not every student engages well with MyTutor, and that's okay, because everyone learns in different ways. You know your students best, so select the students carefully, but there will be times where you do need to swap students out because they don't engage. We at Ryde Academy allow students 2 to maybe 3 chances to engage with a lesson, and if they don't, we then swap them out. To make the swapping out easier, we have a prepared reserve list, and those students are already up to speed with what MyTutor is. They know their reserves, and you just generate a new account. It's quite easy. You log into your portal, you select the student you want to swap out, you type in the details of the new student, click swap, and it does it for you, and it generates that account. That's really important, to keep swapping those students out. And that's why, going back to having the dedicated team to support you, I personally could not sustain that workload on my own as an SLT lead. A year manager couldn't do it on their own. It has to be a team approach. So that's really important. If there ever was a silver lining to the chaos and the mess of lockdowns and COVID, it offers you flexibility to choose when you have your lesson time. So in our in-school program, which generates fantastic attendance, we have 100% attendance for our in-school program. Some of our sessions start at 8:30 in the morning. What we're finding at the moment during lockdowns is, when we're tracking our virtual attendance, those early morning slots are not as productive, and the attendance they struggle with that attendance. So we've shifted our MyTutor slots to start at times like 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we stick to those times religiously every week, where in school we have a 2-week timetable, and those slots might rotate to fit around their learning in school. The at-home slots we keep religiously the same, so 11 and 2 every single week. And that consistency improves attendance as well, because students know what's coming, exactly when it's coming. Obviously, different academies, different schools work to different timetables, but that's what we've chosen to do, and it's helped us. And finally, from me, the most vital thing is that IT infrastructure and the students having the devices to be able to access the program. I'm hugely fortunate that I work for AT, and AET in the last lockdown just wholly committed to getting every single student a laptop, and anyone that didn't have the internet, they were given an internet dongle. And because we did that in the last lockdown, we didn't wait for the DFE to decide they were going to provide laptops. AET was just amazing. So we were really lucky that we could hand out laptops to every student that didn't have one with an internet dongle. You know your students. That's fundamentally clear. All schools know their students inside and out. So that's down to you and how you support those students. Do remember that you can access MyTutor through iPad. I wouldn't suggest, it does work for a phone, but you just can't see the screen and you can't interact with the lesson. But a larger screen iPad, you can get away with it. But the IT infrastructure is vitally important to the success of the program. I whittled through that really quickly. I hope that was really clear. My email address is on there. Please do email me if you have any other further questions, or if you want some more clarification on those tips. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. That was great. I'm just going to jump in and direct some of the questions you guys have been sending through to Will and Dilpreet now. So we've had a few come in. If you do have any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll run through them. But just to start off with, so one person has asked, can we change our time slots when we finally return to school? Are you able to clarify on that one?
Yeah, of course. So yes, that's absolutely fine. We understand that the time slot that might be working for the next 4 weeks and what would work best in school with a new timetable will be completely different. The only thing that we do ask is, when making the changes, just to let us know about the whole cohort. Sometimes there are parts of the cohorts that are changed as time goes on, and it makes it quite difficult for yourself as a teacher to monitor the different groups. So as long as it's the whole group or a substantial amount of the group, then yes, and then we'll change it again when you get back into school.
Great, thank you. And where you spoke about being able to switch and swap students or different year group cohorts, does that switching offer apply both to the NTP and to our normal sort of one-to-one tuition?
Yes, it does. So with our normal one-to-one tuition, there is more flexibility because that is MyTutor policies. With NTP, you can switch to year 9, year 10, year 11. If that doesn't work for any reason, please let us know, because we can speak to NTP providers and see if we can do it for the younger year groups.
Great, thank you. There was one person who asked, if we're new to MyTutor, do you have any videos with pupils' experiences that we can share? So I think I can possibly illuminate on that one. We do. We have a few. So what we can do, we're planning to send, I think Dilpreet mentioned, but we're planning to send an email after this with a few different resources, and we can drop some of those into that email as well. So we'll share those with you. We have a few that are a little bit old but still perfectly valid in terms of pupil interviews, and we also have some clips from Sky News, BBC News, where we've interviewed pupils for TV. So that hopefully answers that one. Will, can I ask a question to you? Someone's asking, how many students are you using MyTutor with this year, and what year groups?
So we're currently running MyTutor with year 11. We have 55 students in year 11, and we're just rolling out and setting up our year 9 program. So we're using the national tutoring program with our year 9. We felt that's where it was needed the most. Those decisions are made within your own settings, and we're looking to do nearly 40 students with year 9, and they'll do in groups of 3. So this is the key change with the NTP to normal MyTutor policy, is that they're in groups of 3 with a tutor, and we're just working through that at the moment, and they will have an hour of English and an hour of maths a week. That's what we're working towards.
Great, thank you, Will. So this one might be one for Dilpreet. Do students need any additional software or hardware to access from home?
No, so all they need is a device to log in, so either a laptop, a tablet, and that's it really. This isn't mandatory, but if possible, we also ask for pupils to have headphones, and that's just because background noise. At the moment, they may have parents who are working from home, other siblings, so where possible, headphones are great too, but nothing other than that.
Thank you. So this one might be one where, Will, perhaps you can talk about your experience. But Natalie has asked, how are we managing the trio situation for the National Tutoring Programme? I'm really concerned that trying to trio students up to work remotely is going to be very, very difficult. So if there's any light that you could shed on how you're managing that, and Dilpreet as well, jump in if you have any tips.
Yeah, so great question. And to be honest, it's new to me as well. But what we've done is we sat down as a team. We involved heavily the pastoral team, the SEND team, and the lead teachers so we have lead practitioners for English and maths. We sat down and we really thrashed it out. And it was quite labour intensive and quite workload heavy. But we had a list of everyone that we wanted to engage in the MyTutor NTP. MyTutor program, and we've really started to look at combinations and the value of what the pastoral team put in there, because they deal on a day-to-day basis with the relationships of those students and the students that have those relationships with each other. So we really front-loaded it there and really thought carefully about the groupings, but we are going to be heavily relying on our reserve list as well. I hope that helps from my perspective. Sorry. It's new to me as well, that one.
Thanks, Will. Dilpreet, anything from you on that?
I was just going to say, for somebody who's new, it's actually spot on, and that's exactly what all of our schools did in our pilot as well. So we tested 3-to-1 tuition with 3 schools before rolling it out at national level. And what the schools did is exactly the same thing. They had a meeting and they made sure that the appropriate people were in that meeting. They grouped pupils at a similar ability level, and having that reserve list is always also really important. I think what's great is they found that pupils who previously hadn't engaged were engaging in a group. So whilst I think that with 3-to-1, there is definitely a lot of effort there with teachers and your MyTutor team to find the right groups. The good news is that we are seeing lots of people engage when they are going into that lesson in a small group.
Thank you. So for anyone who's asking around, can we share the letter templates, email templates, all of that we're going to be sending through in an email after this, as well as the PowerPoint slides that we've gone through today. So you'll get everything. We'll also share the video recording. So for everyone that's asking that sort of question, yeah, that will be coming through. So Dilpreet, one for you around tutor consistency. Is it possible to secure the same tutor so students can build a relationship?
So for many lessons, it is possible. Our tutors can pick up that lesson slot. However, as we know, many things can come up, sickness, timetable changes with our tutors, which means they may not be able to continue with that slot. So what we do say at the start of a program, that it is completely normal to have a couple of tutors throughout the program, especially if it's going on for 10, 15 weeks. However, what we've done to make sure that it is really a smooth transition from tutor to tutor is in our back-end system, tutors leave these notes, and yourself as teachers, you outline what should be covered in the lessons, and every tutor reads this prior to entering a lesson, so they know exactly what that pupil needs and exactly how that last lesson or the last number of lessons ran.
Great, thank you. So quite a few questions coming through. One which I'll go through, Ethel's got quite a few questions, so I'm going to run through some of hers. Oh no, where have they gone? There they are. Okay. How soon can you set up to start at-home learning during the lockdown? So roughly, what's the transition period from in school to at home? And can we change once we get back into school, whenever that is? So Dilpreet, can you clarify on that?
So with the first part of the question, so how long it takes to transition, honestly, this has varied massively. So some schools have asked for up to 2 weeks because they might not have the same luxury that Will and AET schools have had, where you do have the right tech available. And others have taken a couple of days. So just getting, it's more that they know pupils have the right tech, they know how to log in from home. It's just that you have so much to do right now. So it varies massively, but it can happen as soon as a couple of days if the right tech is there. And then the second part of the question, Lauren, was that with so changing lesson times?
So this was in general, can you change back once we get back into school? So obviously if you transition to at home, can you sort of change back to in school? I'm presuming that means things like the lesson slots and so on.
So yes, you can. But on the flip side, if you do see pupils who are excelling more at home, it's absolutely fine to keep some pupils learning from home as well. We can really tailor it on a pupil by pupil basis.
Thank you. And Ethel had a couple of more points, but I might come back to some of those as we've got quite a few questions from other people. So Will, this might be one you could weigh in on. So Alexandra is asking, what's your experience now working with year 11 to year 13 pupils? We are experiencing attendance problems as they started thinking they've passed the exams after the announcement of the cancellation of the exams. So I guess this is a piece about motivation now that exams are cancelled. Would love to hear what you think, Will.
So when that announcement came out in the news, it's very grey. And actually, we read the subtext that actually they may have made that statement of cancelling exams, but there was always going to be some form of assessment and we're going to need evidence. And now Gavin Williamson's saying that there is going to be some form of mini tests, as they're referring to them. So we just put a communication out straight away to all year 11s, regardless of what's been said in the news. We're going to need you working. We're going to need you accessing your work. We have had some students that's become a challenge. I'm not going to sit here and say we're perfect. We're not. We've had some real challenging conversations with some year 11s. I think what's important is that it's a consistent message about what your settings expectations is, and that we are very clear with our year 11, and with that constant communication, we're very clear. You are doing these sessions, they're non-negotiable. We go back over all the amazing opportunity that it gives you in terms of you can't beat one-to-one tuition. The impact it has is huge. We go through all of that, and we do have our own in-school reward systems as well. We have our own house system, and we heavily, even in lockdown, we drop chocolate gifts round and leave them on the doorsteps for students and things like that that are engaging the most with their virtual learning.
Thanks, Will. That's super useful. I'm sure loads of people have facing that problem. Okay, so this is probably a related question, really. It's around sort of the challenge now with at-home learning, where students are sitting at a screen for a large number of hours for school. How do you sort of keep up the motivation and the engagement for MyTutor when they've also got all their lessons online? And if you have any thoughts on that, Will?
Yeah, so I think that's key to it's down to each setting. So my setting, our school, our academy, we've designed our students follow their normal timetable, but we haven't made a commitment that every single lesson they have is a live streamed lesson. Some are pre-recorded, some are self-propelled activities, if that makes sense. And what we've also made a decision was we have a 5-hour-a-day timetable, 1 hour a week, and it changes every day, but that 1 hour a day, is given over to non-screen time activities. And we've created a huge bank of resources for students where they're doing physical activity. There's house competitions, things like writing letters to our local NHS heroes, all those sorts of things to remove them from that screen time. But what we were really explicit and really clear about was year 11s, and it will be year 9s as well, when you have your MyTutor slot, that's set in stone and you have to do that slot. And what we say is, if you have a live streamed lesson, say in ornithology at that point, when you should be having your maths MyTutor lesson, we ask all our live lessons, because of safeguarding anyway, are recorded and they're posted on the Google Classroom, and you can catch up with the live streamed lesson that you've missed in ornithology. MyTutor takes priority. Thanks,
Will. I think that probably answers another question that we had from Joe, who was asking whether your MyTutor sessions are at the same time as timetabled lessons or instead of. I think you've clarified that there. So
in school, we run them during PE lessons and what we call PDL. Right through the school, every student has 1 hour a week of personal development learning, PSHE, religious education, citizenship, and we run them during those sessions, so not to impact on the learning of other students, but to support MyTutor at home, where it's much more difficult, and to challenge and engage. The consistency of those slots was really important, so we just set up our slots to stay the same, and they catch up on the learning that they might miss at that point.
Thanks, Will. So, a few people have asked, I think, a similar sort of question around safeguarding. So, obviously, with lessons being at home, safeguarding considerations are a bit different. Can you talk everyone through all of our sort of, in terms of safety procedures with the tutors and the lesson recordings and so on, if you could go over that?
Yeah, of course. As one of the designated safeguarding officers within MyTutor, this is an area which is really close to my heart. Safeguarding is really, really important, and we take it really seriously at MyTutor. So first of all, I'm sure most of you know this already, but all of our lessons are recorded. There's two reasons for that. Part of that is so pupils rewatch the videos, revise if they were unclear about anything, and the second part is for safeguarding. Here at the MyTutor team, we recently introduced a tutor quality team who watch a large proportion of our videos. So in December, we viewed over 70% of our videos. just to see what was being covered. Was it exactly what you outlined in your pupil details form, checking for any safeguarding concerns, and really just making sure we're keeping our finger on the pulse of how those lessons are running. That's something we're going to be continuing in January. We work really closely with our tutors to make sure that they get the right training, and our tutor teams are sending out lots of top tips about how to make sure that lessons run smoothly from home as well. And the last thing to add here is just that we do have a safeguarding process whereby if either pupils, tutors, teachers, anyone's worried about anything, it is flagged to us really quickly, and then we do flag that with either the SLT lead or the safeguarding lead at the school, just to make sure that you're in the loop. But it's something we take very seriously and we monitor it. Good news is in March and over the last 2 weeks, we haven't seen an increase in any concerns being raised. So there wasn't any correlation with lessons moving at home and increase in safeguarding issues.
Thank you, that's really helpful. One for Will, where you mentioned sort of the reminders, the text messages and so on, do you use any sort of automation for those, or is it all done manually?
The text messaging is done through our MIS, which is Cloud School, formerly Progresso, is what AET use, and it has a text messaging function and an emailing function within there. I can't comment on any of the other systems, but I'd be surprised if they didn't have that. But I know some schools invest in like parent mail, which is like a form of collectively emailing all parents, but we use the functionality through Cloud School to do that.
Thank you, Will. Dilpreet, this is a bit more of a technical one for you. It's around the 3-to-1 trio groups for the NTP. Is it possible to mix year groups if the pupils are at a similar stage of learning or attainment? So, for example, could you have 2 year 11s and 1 year 10? Is that possible?
So we've never actually had that request before. It's a really interesting one. I think with that, it feels pretty bespoke. So I'd be keen to have a discussion with any schools who want to do that, just to make sure that it does lead to the right pupil outcomes. So I think with that one, never had it before, no blanket rule, but keen to have a chat to understand. Will, you went off mute for a second. Were you going to add something?
Yeah. What I'll add there is some scope for that potentially with Key Stage 4, because if you've got a high flying top set, really able year 10 who's working at a similar level to your grade 5 sort of tip of students, or they match in level and skill gap, education, I wouldn't see an issue with that, Dilpreet, if the students are chosen correctly.
Nice. Well, that is definitely something we could look into. So no, thank you for bringing that. We're thinking of more ways that we can help you deliver these lessons from home and reach out to the right pupils. So I will have a look, see who asked that question after the webinar and reach out to you.
Thank you. Probably quite a straightforward one. Dilpreet, if a student is late, is there a time window where they can't join anymore?
No, they can join at any time. We don't want to stop them from not joining. So although we hope they're not very late, they can join at any time. And if we are worried about pupil punctuality for anyone, we'll raise that in our programme reports, so you're fully aware.
Thank you. So there's a question here around tutor notes, which I will just read out from Kirsty. Is there a way we can print the tutor notes like a report that can be shared with parents? I think this would really improve parental engagement if they knew how their child was progressing and seeing what impact the tuition is having. Might not be a feature that we currently have, but Dilpreet, could you come back on that one?
We don't have that right now, but I was catching up with the product team yesterday talking about how we may be able to engage more pupils and parents. So I will pick this up with them after the webinar and just see if that is something we can do, because we have had that request a couple of times.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time. We've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try and whiz through as many questions as possible. If we don't have time to answer one of your questions, please just drop us an email afterwards and we can respond individually afterwards. Dilpreet, do students at home have to have a webcam?
You don't have to have one, no. Of course, it's ideal just for that extra bit of engagement, but it's not mandatory.
Great, thank you. And does a teacher need to be on hand in case of issues when the students are engaged in the lessons, particularly if these are run after school? Perhaps, Will, you could talk about that. Do you have a teacher on hand for the sessions?
So, yeah, I have 2 support members of staff. I have one dedicated to the Year 11 MyTutor programme, and I've got one linked to the Key Stage 3 programme, and they are on hand the entire time that the sessions are running, not just in the build up, doing all the communications to parents and children, etc. It's being available during that time, because there's always hiccups with students logging in and they all need a bit of guidance. So that's why we have that MyTutor email. That's why we've got the Google Classroom, and that's just monitored constantly during that lesson time. When we're running the program in school, we have a classroom that's nothing but MyTutor, and all the equipment's in there, and that dedicated member of staff runs those sessions. We were fortunate enough when we employed our new design technology technician, into their contract was written that for 4 hours a week, they would also run the MyTutor sessions. So I'm just fortunate that I have that member of staff to lean on, because without that, it's a lot of work for the SLT link to manage. So you need that support member of staff really during the lesson time to support the students if they need it.
Thanks, Will. I think I'm going to close off with the last 2 questions that we've got time to squeeze in. Dilpreet, this is probably one for you, specifically with the coronavirus situation, with students sometimes needing to cancel sessions just before the start, for example, if they're feeling unwell. Will we consider making any adjustments to the 24-hour cancellation policy? Do we ever make exceptions for sort of extenuating circumstances?
So we have made exceptions before for emergencies which have come up, but I think it's important to share why we've put that 24-hour rule in place. There's 2 parts to this. I think the first is to try and hold pupils accountable so they know that they can't just cancel last minute. And the second is just to make sure that we secure our tutors who can be in that lesson, and we let them know that they will give them enough warning as well if that lesson isn't going to take place. With coronavirus, there has been some circumstances where something urgent has happened or people have had to go into hospital. Of course, when something like that happens, we will take a sensitive approach, but right now it isn't a blanket rule.
Thanks, Dilpreet. And I think probably just very last question for Will. Where you mentioned that you use Google Classroom to sort of support with MyTutor, is there any more info you can share on exactly how you do that? Someone just asked for elaboration.
Yeah. So you run it as a classroom like you would with a normal subject. So 9N1 music class has a classroom and all the students are in that classroom. So what you do, you create a classroom, you call it MyTutor Year 11 2021 program. You add all the students in with their school email addresses, and then you add your key staff. And it's just a really quick, simple way of communicating with all the students. It is just like, you could just set up an email group, but we're a Google platform school and all the students are really used to using Google Classrooms. And it's a really easy way to, for example, resend out the instructional videos and all the letters again to all the students. It's just a quick, simple way of being able to communicate. There's loads of instructional guides online on how to do Google Classrooms as well, but I'm happy to take some emails on that as well.
Thank you, Will. That's super helpful. So I think we've got 1 minute to 1, so I think we'll probably wrap up now in the Q&A. Sorry for anyone we didn't have time to answer your questions, but hopefully we got to most of them. So I'll hand back over to Dilpreet now.
Thanks, Lauren. And thank you, Will, for being a great guest speaker and for sharing your experience.
No problem. Thank you.
I was on the phone to Will yesterday evening and he was telling me about his 90-hour weeks, which I'm sure all of you guys are doing right now. So huge thank you, Will. But also huge thank you to everyone for making time to attend today. We really hope you found it valuable. And as Lauren said, if we didn't get to your question, really, really sorry, but please just email schools@mytutor.co.uk and we'll get to that for you. And we'll be following up with an email with all of the content that we mentioned, a recording of this video. So if there is anyone who wasn't able to attend, but who you think that might be useful, or you might be trying to rope into being your MyTutor team so you don't have to shoulder this alone, please do share on to them as well. And finally, we've created a post-webinar feedback survey that will launch when you close your Zoom. If you could fill that out, it won't take more than 60 seconds. That would be great. But other than that, take care, stay safe, and wish you a wonderful afternoon.